Isn't it magnificent? Splendiferous? Hopefully not too odorous. Hopefully. You guys got to be excited though, don't ya? Getting to December now. This year's almost frickin' over, thank the Lord. And here I am, giving you my second 2021 NFL mock draft. Like, that's got to be exciting, at least for a few of you. Some of you, perhaps, maybe so, I don't know. I certainly would hope so. And to reward you for clicking on this video, I'm actually giving you a 2-round mock for this second version. I've put both rounds worth of picks, all 64 of them, in the description box down below. So make sure you check it out so you get the full context. Please keep in mind that we are still incredibly early in the process. Very, 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 very early in the process. Feels like it's repetition for me, the Department of Redundancy department type of thing at this point, but it's absolutely true. This is way, way, way early in the process. So expect a couple of things. A, some guys that have a lot of name recognition are not nearly as good as where they're being represented in mock drafts right now. That's number one. Unequivocally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is true. Number two, there are going to be guys that you think have absolutely no business going in round one, in large part because you've never heard of them and or never really seen them or watched them, that end up going in round one. That also, unequivocally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is absolutely true. Number three, again, I'm going to circle back to this. A lot can change over the next 4+ months. So don't be wigging out too much, freaking out too much, panicking too much, because I got your team taking this guy instead of this guy. At this point in time, what the hell does anybody know, frankly? I mean, seriously, what does anybody know? It's a fun exercise nonetheless to go through this and start to think about where players could potentially be, forecasting their draft stock. Like, it's fun. I love talking about the draft, and I look forward to doing a lot more when it comes to this 2021 NFL draft, that is for sure. So let's go ahead and take a look at my 2-round mock. And this time I'll go a little differently, and I'll talk about the Chicago Bears first. It's my team. You know, lose them all, fellas. No good comes from another win this year. Period. Lose them all. You've lost 7 of them. Go the distance. Lose 11. You can do it. I got faith in you. Do the right thing. But a lot of Bears fans, I'm sure, are split into a couple of different camps. One is it's quarterback or bust in round 1 no matter what. And admittedly, I'm largely in that camp. Because let us be clear, the Bears have nothing at the quarterback position. Therefore, they have nothing as an offense. They are a nothing as an organization. And until they fix that, nothing will change about them. Nothing. You miss every shot that you don't take. Period. They have to come out of this draft with an answer at the quarterback position for the long term. Not via free agency, not via some dumb dick trade, the draft. You have to reset that window for competing, and you do that with a young quarterback. Just because you screwed up with Rex all those years ago, just because you screwed up with Trubisky in 2017, doesn't mean you stop trying. It doesn't. It just doesn't. That's a losing mindset. I'm afraid to step out on a limb and trust my evaluation process and take a young quarterback. Then you're not going to do shit. And you shouldn't be in the league in your role. Period. You have some Bears fans that are going to go the old, like, hey, we got to play the board, and you don't want to reach too much on a quarterback if the value is better at offensive line or wide receiver, and it may be, depending on where the Bears pick. Then you got to go offensive line first or wide receiver first and then worry about the quarterback later. There is an argument to be made for that, and I won't totally dismiss it. However, if you're tiptoeing through the tulips trying to take an offensive lineman, let's say you're picking somewhere between 10 and 15, because you're afraid of taking the quarterback that you like because you have him more as a late first-round guy, then you're a moron. Take the goddamn quarterback. Because who gives a crap where they end up being taken if they work out? You know what I mean? I'm just saying. Now, if you could say, hey, you go into the draft process and all of a sudden you start to hear about some of the guys that are maybe being thought of very highly right now are starting to drop down boards, then maybe, just maybe, you can do that. And you can take an offensive tackle or a wide receiver first and then try to peel back up into the tail end of round one, somewhere around maybe 24 to 27, and get your quarterback still. You can certainly try that. It can work. But then there's also the thought of, if you really truly like a quarterback that much, then go up and get him. Like if this organization was stupid enough to trade up from 3 to 2 for no reason to get a Trubisky, you certainly have to entertain the possibility of trading up to actually get a legit franchise quarterback. So there certainly is that. To me, I think it's quarterback no matter what. And in fact, when you think about this draft for the Bears, I've got them taking Trey Lance at 13, and then I've got them taking Mayfield, the offensive tackle from Michigan, in round 2. I mean, obviously those are both huge needs, but quarterback is the need. After ownership, which you can't change the ownership, so nothing you can do there. Getting a legit team president, that's 1. Then a legit general manager, that's 2. Legit head coach, that's 3. And then it's quarterback. Those are the organizational needs. But it is quarterback no matter what. You must get one. And frankly, you should then take another one in day 3. Continue to invest in the position. The most important position in North American professional sports, and yet so many teams criminally neglect it and don't invest resources consistently from the draft into the quarterback position. That's foolishness. That's absolute stupidity. Because you never know what can happen. Keep taking swings. Keep taking chances. Build bench strength. Build a future. For the Bears, it's got to be quarterback no matter what. I don't care how you go about doing it. It's got to be the right one, yes, but it's got to be one. Period. When you look at this draft, I don't think this has changed. My top 2 picks are still Trevor Lawrence and Kyle Wilson. I think some people are going to put Justin Fields as the second quarterback. I start to wonder if Wilson won't end up being QB2 when all is said and done. I'd assume at this point that Lawrence is going to be viewed as a top prize no matter what, whether he really truly is QB1 in this draft or not. I think when you look at Trevor Lawrence, there's too much hype. There's too much pedigree, too much success there. He's whoever ends up with the number 1 overall pick, whether it's the Jets, the Jags, or somebody else, Trevor Lawrence is going to be that guy. He's going to be the one taking number 1 overall. You would assume at 3 that even though Burrow had that really brutal leg injury, that the Bengals aren't going to move on from him. You would assume offensive line would certainly be a priority for them in the offseason, and that would make sense. And based off of where they were drafting here, you take the best offensive lineman at pick 3 and probably feel pretty good about that. Where it could get interesting is Dallas at 4. Do you make the argument that you're okay with moving on from Dak? Do you potentially tag him again and try and trade him and get a first-round pick? Because somebody will give up a first-round pick for Dak. Might even be the Bears. It could be other teams. San Francisco could. There could be a variety of teams that would have an interest potentially in a Dak Prescott. For the Cowboys, you're sitting there at 4. If you really truly like a quarterback, do you kind of reset the clock and kind of reshape and remold yourself a little bit and buy yourself some more time? Interesting question. I don't think they do at the present time, but stranger things have happened. But it's crazy, though. When I look, this is when I start to get an indication of just how old I truly am. I remember watching Patrick Surtain, the first one, throughout his entire NFL career. And now here I am seeing Patrick Surtain the second. That's just mind-blowing to me. I think about last year's draft, Antoine Winfield Jr. I remember watching Antoine Winfield Sr. all those damn years, and now I'm watching Jr.? Getting old, man. Getting old. I still have 6 quarterbacks going in round number 1. You'll see Mac Jones is down there at 23. He's the low man on the totem pole. I think that could happen because some teams will be a little bit concerned about the lack of true firepower in the hose, his sidearm, if you will. But I think a lot of teams are going to like his ball placement. They're going to like his maturity, his poise, his field vision. So there will be things about him that teams will really like. But you think about a team like Indianapolis, if they're not in the market to trade for somebody like a Carson Wentz, that certainly would be a possibility that they'd be looking to draft a quarterback. But the Jags, I think the Jags are in a decent spot. Because assuming they end up with the number 2 pick. Let's just assume for a second that the Jets either lose out or the Jags won one more game of the last 4. Please be against Chicago. And they go like 2-14. Maybe the Jets get a sympathy victory. They go 1-15. And the Jags are still sitting really nicely there at pick 2 because they can get their choice of the second best quarterback in this draft. And when you think about the history of the draft and talking about quarterbacks, there are many times where the so-called perceived once-in-a-generational quarterback or once-in-a-decade quarterback or the clear-cut top quarterback in a deep class ends up not being the top quarterback at all. He absolutely does not. So if you're a team like the Jags and you're picking second, you shouldn't feel bad if you don't get Trevor Lawrence because that might work out potentially for the better. You don't know. Same thing with Carolina. You're like, well, you send Teddy Bridgewater just to win enough games to get outside of Trevor Lawrence's launch position. But if you end up with a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance or a Kyle Trask or Mac Jones and that ends up being the guy, there's a potential that they could end up being better than Trevor Lawrence. Because it's not even just about the talent, it's about the infrastructure around them in terms of the roster. It's the infrastructure around them in terms of coaching, the scouting department, the front office, the organization as a whole. There's a lot that goes into it. So, as I look at this, my draft certainly has a decidedly offensive lean, and I think that's representative of the offensive talent in this draft is superior in a lot of ways, but also should be a reflection of defense doesn't win championships in the NFL anymore, and it's not going to consistently do that anymore. You must update, modify, and change with the times. You must be great on offense. You must have explosive big play abilities on offense. You must be able to put up points on the board on offense. So it shouldn't be that surprising that you see my mock draft is very reflective of that. And I don't anticipate that changing much until we start to maybe get closer to the draft and I start to realize that some NFL teams just really are that stupid and really that far behind the times. But anyways, you can check out my 2-round mock. Again, all of the picks are in the description box. You can tell me what you think about my 2 picks for the Chicago Bears. You can tell me what you think about some of the other picks that I have. Look forward to seeing it all. Look forward to seeing you flame on me. All right, I'm out.